Welcome to Random and Memorable, a podcast from 1Password. I'm Matt Davey, 1Password's Chief Experience Officer.
I'm Sarah, one of the founders at 1Password.
I'm Roo, Head of Password Manager Development.
I'm Anna, the producer behind the show.
And we're the hosts behind Random and Memorable. Together, we offer up bi-weekly security advice, interview special guests from the cybersecurity community, and round up the latest security news in Watchtower Weekly. Plus, we may play a silly security game or two. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey, this is a little awkward, but I'll bring it up anyway. I don't think that your birthday present for me has arrived yet. And I wanted to know, like, if you had a tracking number or something that you should check. I haven't seen it.
Okay. This is awkward. I did think about getting you a few things.
Aw.
I saw them and thought, oh, Roo would like that. But then the decision that I made was, one, it will probably cost more than that thing to get it to you.
Right.
And two, you probably have too much crap already. So,
It's true.
I know, it's the thought that counts. And the thought really was, don't add that to his house.
Aw. I actually appreciate that.
So really, that was both a present for you and your wife.
Carrie got me a box of housewares as one of my presents, and it was the first one I opened, and I was like, thanks. Why did I get this? She goes, oh, we needed that. I go, okay. Great. And then the next present was a bag that I just kept pulling pairs of socks out of. It was like socks.
I have so many socks. I feel like everybody doesn't know what to buy me for Christmas or birthdays because they are like, oh, I got you some socks. And I'm like, oh, I have socks at the back of the drawer that were from many, many Christmases ago.
Yeah. The last present that I opened, though, after getting housewares and repeated articles of clothing, was the Lego Avengers Quinjet. It is a big build, and it is really fun. So that was great. I love getting Lego because, well, first of all, it's just fun to build, and it's like meditative, but also like, hey kids, let's go build this Lego together. So what do you get for the person who has everything? You get them Lego. It's an easy buy.
Okay. Well, I'll keep that in mind.
A couple of years ago when we were doing Company Secret Santa, Megs sent me a Lego SLR that was like one of those.
Oh, that's cool.
Custom builds. Like this is someone just made this kit. Like this is not from Lego. And what's really cool is that the back opens and there's Lego film inside. Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah, I keep this on my desk. I've had this on my desk for years.
The reason why I remember the Company Secret Santa when we used to do that, when there used to be enough people that everybody from the company got on a call and did a Secret Santa. I remember the one dude that ate biscuits that were meant for his cat before anybody told him those are not for you, those are for your cat.
Oh, I love that.
In his defense, they did look a bit like human biscuits, but
that's awesome. All right. Listen, stick around with us on the show today because a little bit later on we'll be joined by
I intend to.
We'll be joined by 1Password's VP of Security and Chief Information Security Officer, Jacob DePriest. Jacob is quickly becoming one of my favorite people at the company. I think he's also the friendliest person at the company. I think that's a title that he currently holds. We talk all about the highs and lows of leading security at a security company, as well as his best advice for building strong, robust, and diverse security teams. It was a good chat. I liked hanging out with Jacob.
Nice. Let's kick off with some Watchtower Weekly. This is where we pick out some security news stories that caught our eye over the last week or so and share our thoughts or unwanted opinions on them. So, of course, we have, to kick things off, the big news that Apple in the UK pulled the data protection tool after a row with the UK government.
Boo! Oh, sorry.
So yes, Apple is taking the unprecedented step of removing its highest level of data security tool from customers in the UK after the government demanded access to user data. This is fascinating on many levels and upsetting on a few. We all love end-to-end encryption, and this is not done particularly well by the UK government, I don't think. But from Apple's perspective, I think this was incredibly well handled. The UK government essentially asked for a backdoor key, and they just took away encryption for an area of the product instead. I think that's the best way to handle it. So end-to-end encryption, otherwise known as Advanced Data Protection, or ADP, means that only account holders can view items such as photos or documents they have stored online through a process known as end-to-end encryption. But in February, the UK government asked for the right to see the data, which currently not even Apple can access. Apple did not comment at the time, but has consistently opposed creating a backdoor in its encryption service, arguing that if it did so, it would only be a matter of time before bad actors also found a way in. This is something that has long been the argument between this. It's either encrypted or it is not encrypted. There is no kind of like, oh, we'll have a backdoor. Like end-to-end literally means end-to-end. As soon as you have a way in, Apple has a way in.
Yeah.
And then the bad actor has a way in. And then anybody who has, from the state of asking for a warrant all the way through, some random police officer like this person, they all have access as well, arguably. It's ridiculous. Either it is or it isn't. That's a maths point rather than a political one. But it essentially means that the tech giant has decided that it will no longer be possible to activate ADP in the UK. And it also means that not all customers' data now stored on iCloud, Apple's cloud service storage, will be fully encrypted. So data with standard encryption is accessible by Apple and shareable with law enforcement if they have a warrant. The Home Office told the BBC, "We do not comment on anything operational matters, including, for example, confirming or denying the existence of any such notices." Great. So in a statement, Apple said that it was gravely disappointed that the security feature would no longer be available to British customers. Will Cathcart, head of WhatsApp, responded to a post on X expressing his concerns about the government's request. He wrote, "If the UK forces a global backdoor into Apple's security, it will make everyone in the country less safe. One country's secret order risks putting all of us in danger, and it should be stopped." I think that's a great shout. Like, if us in our, like, weird little island over here start making demands, like, there's no reason why that should affect everybody else. Two senior US politicians said that it was so serious a threat to American national security that the US government should reevaluate its intelligence sharing agreements with the UK unless it was withdrawn. And with Apple pulling the plug on at-rest end-to-end encryption for UK users and Signal threatening to pull out of Sweden if that government demands end-to-end encryption backdoors, it is certainly looking a bit, bleak out there for encryption.
Yeah, I don't like this. Honestly, this feels like the first pebble to fall in an upcoming avalanche, and I don't care for it.
I don't care that it's my country that started that pebble either.
Correct. Yes, I don't care for that either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love this, but I think Apple dealt with it in the way that they had to.
Yep.
Okay, so cybercriminals use fake security audit scams to breach corporate systems. This one's from thehackernews.com. So companies are being warned that malicious hackers are using a novel technique to break into businesses by pretending to offer audits of the company's security. So authorities in Belgium and Ukraine have issued alerts after reports of fraudsters contacting companies claiming to be from cybersecurity agencies. In Belgium, attackers have been officers from the so-called Federal Cybercrime Service, an organization that does not actually exist. In Ukraine, similar scams have been reported with criminals impersonating officials from the CERT UA. The scammers offer a free cybersecurity assessment, often bringing their own equipment or asking victims to install remote access software like AnyDesk. Once granted, they can infiltrate company networks and steal sensitive data. So really, any tool that ends up sharing your screen, I'm completely adverse to. Like, handing over keys to stuff, even if the government is on the other end, is just bad news every time.
Yeah. Yep.
So, cybersecurity experts have advised businesses to be cautious. If approached by someone offering an audit, verify their credentials by contacting the relevant authorities directly through official channels. Suspicious activity should always be reported immediately. The real authority coordinating Belgium's cybersecurity is the CCB, and according to the CCB, the criminals pretend to be an officer of the Federal Cybercrime Service. Ukraine's Computer Emergency Response Team, or CERT UA, issued a similar alert last month where they said that there had been numerous cases where unidentified parties had posed as officials and encouraged companies to allow them to conduct cybersecurity audit. The genuine Cert UA explained that in some cases, it does use remote access software to assist in the defense of organizations, only after prior agreement through pre-agreed communication channels. Companies are advised that if there is any doubt, not to make an appointment and report any contact with a potential scammer to the authorities. Or the fact that they do actually use remote access software and then the hackers are essentially impersonating using likely the same product, that is difficult. I honestly think that I would be a blanket no. If it's really urgent, you come round to my door and then I can check you out and all of those things, and that's when we'll go.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's move on to my chat with Jacob DePriest. Jacob and I had a great time sitting down together to discuss his career in cybersecurity and how he landed at 1Password, plus the pressures and challenges of working as a CISO. We even cover things like his aspirations for 1Password, his dream security products, and so much more. So let's hop right to it and drop it in here. Our guest today is Jacob DePriest, VP of Security and Chief Information Security Officer at 1Password. Jacob brings a wealth of experience from his previous roles, including Deputy Chief Security Officer at GitHub. Prior to that, he served as a senior executive to the National Security Agency, leading initiatives such as the Developer Experience Program and acting as the agency's executive sponsor for open source projects. With a strong background in both offensive and defensive cybersecurity, Jacob is a developer, security engineer, and advocate for open source software. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is great. You and I chat frequently in through our workday. Never in this capacity though, so this is a new dynamic. Yeah. I like this.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
You've been with us for a little while now.
6 months today.
6 months. Amazing. How are things at 1Password? Is it still fire hose to the face information, or is it slowed down a little bit?
You know, it's a bit like, for those out there who've had kids, it's a bit like every time you feel like you are kind of getting the hang of something, then they throw a new curveball at you. So it's good. Still drinking from the fire hose a little bit, but definitely in new ways. And so having a blast, though, to be honest. Like, we're having so much fun as a company, as a team. Security team's rocking and rolling and having fun, too. So no complaints.
That's awesome. What drew you to this role at 1Password?
Yeah, so, you know, it's funny. I talk to a lot of folks here, and then I interview a fair bit because we're hiring. And so one of the consistent answers I always hear, and it's true for me, too, is I've been a 1Password user for a really long time. So 10 plus years, you start to think about, like, where do you want to work? Where are the people you want to work with? What are the things you want to help solve for the world? And so I started kind of thinking about what was next and hearing about what 1Password was doing and the job. I wanted to work somewhere that was building things I really cared about. And that was also a fun, generative learning environment place to work. So as I started talking to the team and getting to know folks through the interview process and kind of doing my research as well, all those things seemed to be really true. And it's turned out to be true so far for me as well. You know, it's just not every day you get to join a company that's tackling kind of a new problem space. And so as I was talking to the company and really hearing about our push into extended access management, so taking the password manager and kind of moving beyond that and solving other problems that are adjacent for our customers, I got really excited about it because it's stuff that I've personally struggled to help solve in the past in an easy, kind of joyful way for our teams. And to be part of doing something bigger, I knew I had to do it.
Yeah, that's very cool. That story, you're right, like repeated over and over again by so many people. Like even for me, when I was in between jobs, I literally just opened up my applications folder and was like, 1Password, I use that. Maybe they're hiring. And like literally just texted Roost and was like, are you guys hiring? So
I love it. I did something not too dissimilar.
Yeah. You're right, like about the new things that we are tackling. Like the company continues to grow and the password manager continues to be the core of our business, and we are expanding. We're looking beyond that in some really interesting ways. It feels like we are creating a new niche in the industry and like getting to like define it as we go, which just feels so fun.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me too, like, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about this a little bit more today, but like, it's solving real problems. Like these are things that I talk to peers and other security teams about at conferences and other scenarios. And this is stuff that's hard for most security teams to tackle in any sort of meaningful way and feel good that they're making a difference, but also feel good that they're doing it in a way that isn't just impacting productivity left and right across their company, which security folks care about. And so I think that to me is also really exciting. It's not just a new space, it's a space that like, I think we can make a huge difference in.
Okay. In other discussions, you've talked a lot about software development and supply chain security. Do you see any connections between that and what 1Password is doing today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I've a lot of my career has been in the software development engineering space, software development tools, supply chain security, things like that. And so I do think a lot about this even today. And what is our role as a company? Is there ways we can help? And I think the short answer is yes. There's some things that are already out there today that maybe some folks don't know about. And so one of the things that I got really excited about, I think this was like week 2 after I joined 1Password, where for developers, we can store the SSH key for a developer in a vault in 1Password, which is great. And that's something I've used for a really long time. And if you look at some of my demos I've done in conferences and stuff, you'll see the little 1Password biometrics thing pop up and check. But with our device trust solution, which is powered by Collide, which joined the 1Password family last year, we can also now help businesses encourage their user base to put those keys into vaults and get them out of local storage. And so it seems kind of a little thing, but to be able to do that at scale across hundreds, thousands of developers and get those very, very sensitive keys, which often have access to, the most sensitive source code from a company, and get them in a vault, put them behind biometrics, put them in an encrypted space that can only be accessed with the proper credentials and biometrics, I think is a huge step forward. And so that's just kind of the beginning of what I think we're doing. And in terms of the broader security story, I think this is where kind of what we were hinting at a minute ago comes in with extended access management and where we're trying to head as a company. So like, from what I've seen and experienced firsthand, one of the challenges most security and IT teams face is how to protect not just the logins for applications, but how to deal with entitlements and sort of the access management thing around that. And that has a bearing on the supply chain. It has a bearing on software development as well. And so, of course, our password manager is widely used. Lots of people use it. Lots of companies use it. And I think device trust angle with Collide is also having a huge impact for a lot of companies to be able to pull this together. But the third pillar is the access management part, the entitlements of how do we manage who has access to what? How do we do that in a way that ensures that onboarding, offboarding, all those things work in a way that security and IT teams expect them to? And that's where kind of the new things that we're working on with the Trellica company that just joined us last month are coming into play.
Yeah. I've mentioned this to you a few times. Like I watched the demo that you recorded with the folks from Trellica, and like the amount of things that they have been able to build is staggering from a software development point of view. The number of integrations that they've built, I'm just like, how? And they're not like a huge team. Like it's pretty like it's really not like we're not talking hundreds of developers. It's like sub 20, and like really incredible stuff that I think is going to make such a huge difference for our customers. It's so cool.
Yeah, it really is. And so many companies have been really forced to go solve that problem on their own.
Yeah.
Without the right teams, without the right kind of integrations, they've just sort of had to be like, well, we got to solve this somehow. So we'll go spend some developer time that we weren't really planning on to go figure this out. And they cobble together a solution. And so I think seeing something really well done that solves such a huge problem for companies and then integrating that in with the other things that we're doing is going to be, I think it's really going to help a lot of people save a lot of time and money.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Managing security at a company like 1Password, I'm sure it has to have a lot of interesting nuance because security is at the core of what we do. It's everything that we do. So I would love for you to share some behind the scenes insights into what it's like to manage security here.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the folks on the security team and the company in general are passionate about what we do. It's really difficult to find anybody at the company that doesn't care deeply about the products we're building and understanding the impact that has on our users, whether it's a consumer, whether it's like our parents that we're trying to get to use the password managers because we want to protect their data and logins, or it's the companies that are relying on our capabilities for their existence, really. And so we kind of get that. And I think that drives a lot of the passion and helps keep us focused on the things we need to be focused on. I think we also realize from a security perspective that one of the reasons 1Password is so loved in the community is that we value and prioritize the user experience, right? It's just gotten better and better over the years. You talk to folks outside the company and people are like, we just love what you're doing. Like, we want you to keep doing what you're doing. It's great to use. So I think that's also an aspect to it as well, is we don't want to just do security for security's sake, right? Like, any security person knows that the most secure app or device is the one that's turned off, right? It's powered down.
Right.
But that's not going to help anybody, right? That's not our goal. And so we talk a lot on the security team about how can we not just make sure our products and the company is secure, but how do we also support what the products are trying to do for our customers? Because we care about that broader security goal for the ecosystem. And so all those things kind of come together, I think, to create a really fun environment for us. We get that there's a lot of responsibility being where we are in the ecosystem and being on that security team, but it's also motivating.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like you have a high pressure job?
Yeah, it's a good question. I talked to a lot of peers about this and actually friends in other professions that I was talking to a friend who's a doctor and works in operating rooms quite regularly recently. And, I think the thing I think about here and the thing I talk to the team about is we do have a big responsibility in the ecosystem, but we also have a great team, right? We have to rely on each other. We have a great team, not just in security, but we have a great team in the tech organization. We have a great leadership team at 1Password. And so it really takes all of us to come together. The other thing that I think makes the job really fulfilling, but also helps kind of work through that pressure to a certain degree, is that the company is filled with people who love security and care about it, right? So there's a lot of security leaders out there who are at companies where security is definitely like very low on the list. And it's a thing that must be done for compliance reasons or whatever, but it's not actually first and foremost in most people's mind at the company. And I get it, like that from a business perspective, those things is not necessarily like the wrong place to be. But it's sure great to work at a company where you can talk about security things with almost anybody at the company. And they're like, oh, yeah, like I get it. It makes sense. That's what we should do for our users. How do we think about balancing productivity with risk? I can have that conversation with pretty much any employee at the company. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that was instilled early on here. We had some security leaders early on who taught the developers how to think about it. And so it went from us bringing problems to them and being like, how could we do this? Pivoted very quickly to like, hey, these are the solutions we're thinking about. This is how we're thinking about it. This is how we're balancing risk against productivity. Does this make sense? And like, you're right. Like having that thought process and having that basis instilled across the company really changes the dynamic of the conversations and pulls you and your team out of this like constant defense mode against like, oh my God, please stop doing that. Don't do that, right? Like you don't have to have that conversation as much.
Yeah. I think modern security leaders really understand that we can't be in an us versus them world anymore. That can't work. Like we have to figure out how to scale solutions together. But it's definitely a great place to be pretty far along that road at 1Password because we're all in it together trying to solve the same things.
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't be a random but memorable podcast interview if we didn't talk about AI. With the advancements in AI and the surge in AI-powered attacks and social engineering techniques, do you have advice that you give to people or organizations now that is maybe different than it used to be? Like, how has the landscape shifted?
Sure. Yeah, I think on the one hand, AI is definitely accelerating the types and quality of the threats that we're seeing, particularly in the social engineering space, but also I think we're starting to see it show up in other ways as well. On the other hand, the threats are still largely the same for most companies and most teams, right? And so unless you're a company that's in the AI development space, like your product is AI driven, then there may be some like additional things to think about in terms of protections. Largely, like we're still seeing the vast majority of successful attacks involve credentials and credential theft and like how we think about app logins. And, so I think most of the time I always go back to the fundamentals, right? Are we using phishing resistant MFA? Don't click on the links or respond to those text messages from the CEO in the middle of the night if you're not sure about it, asking for gift cards, right? Keep your phone and your laptop up to date, patch your production systems. And I think that's still kind of the best approach for most security teams. I do think, though, with that said, that it's incumbent upon security teams, security leaders and really kind of anybody in the technology space to kind of keep up with what's possible with AI. And if your company's not approving that for kind of work on a daily basis, then get an account on the weekend and see what you can do. See what coding is like with it. See what, doing a simulated attack with AI, see what's happening. Because I think if we don't keep up with what's possible, there is a risk that new capabilities will come out and catch teams by surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had some physical penetration testers on the show in the past, people who are out there trying to break into actual buildings and gain access and stuff like that. And the thing that has come up time and again talking to those folks is that it is the human element remains the thing. Like, you can patch your systems, you can, and you should, like, you can have all the fancy software in the world, but there's a lot that a guy with a high-vis jacket and a ladder or a guy with a pizza box can do at a physical location that, like, if you don't train the people, you're going to be lost very quickly.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to talk a little bit about secure by design and zero trust. Do you think that secure by design and zero trust environments are becoming default best practices in the industry? Do you think it's common enough now that people are understanding what that means and how to bring those practices into their workplace?
I think both zero trust and secure by design are becoming sort of the go-to ideal states that a lot of security teams are sort of comparing themselves against, and companies are saying, like, how are we doing on the scale? But I do think it's important to realize there's probably not one solution or blueprint that companies can just snap to. Like, you can't go buy a thing or work with a partner and all of a sudden, like, 8 months later, you've got it. Like, you've done zero trust or you've done secure by design. And so I think it's helping shape what good looks like and helping all of us in the security industry think through good solutions for common attack patterns. With that said, though, I think the secure by design work is really critical. And so when I think about this from the industry's perspective, the goal is to really encourage companies to build in secure settings, secure workflows, secure password defaults out of the box, right? And so putting some of the responsibility back on companies to take a stand of saying, like, no, we're not just going to put everything on the end user. We're going to actually work together to try and level up the security ecosystem together. And so I think that is really important. And I think, it's things like making sure that MFA is required for most users in certain, particularly social platforms or larger platforms where phishing is a really a bigger threat, or there's not other mitigating factors in place. And so I think we do have to keep doing that as an industry. I will say, though, I think with that said, most companies are still just trying to figure out the best way they can ship some security with the resources they have to keep productivity high, right? Like, security is often a thing that most companies, like, they have to do it, they know it, but it's not necessarily a thing that they're like, it's probably not on most companies' 5-year plan to ship zero trust or be secure by design. Like, sure, the big ones maybe, but like the vast majority of small, medium, even large companies just aren't thinking about that necessarily. And so I think this is where I'm excited again of where we're headed as a company here with extended access management, that if we can help the companies with lower resources, smaller teams solve a huge chunk of these problems and implement a lot of these defaults out of the gate, I think that's fantastic. And I think we have an opportunity to level up these smaller teams and bigger teams with the things that we're building.
Yeah, I agree. How do you ensure that we at 1Password are staying ahead of evolving cyber threats? We are responsible for the world's secrets for many, many people, which is a huge responsibility for us.
Yeah.
So how do we stay ahead?
Yeah, it probably won't surprise you from my previous answers here that I generally come back to the core fundamentals of what we have to do as a team. Like, are we putting in place processes, solutions, and training that enable every employee to know what they need to do, to have secure by default settings, to ensure that we're protecting against common attacks? And so this is things like we're, making sure that our access management is buttoned up. We're making sure that logins are secure. We're making sure our endpoints are secure, right? It's vuln management, all those kind of things that are sort of, we think of as fundamental to security programs. And sure, they're not necessarily some of the more esoteric attacks that are coming that we see in the news, which we're also paying attention to. But it's, if you don't have the fundamentals in place first, then trying to go chase the more exotic attacks actually can be a distraction. So I think that's one, and we're not going to get distracted by those things, but we'll continue to pay attention to them and make sure we're protecting against them as well. The other part is partnership. I believe really strongly that we can't scale security outcomes. Any security team can't scale security outcomes on their own. That has to be a partnership with, usually it's engineering and tech, but also HR and product and sales all have a role in thinking about how security impacts what we do as a company, how it impacts our customers. This is why I spend some time with the GTM team actually this week talking about these things and talking about how we can put in place kind of the right defaults, even in our contracts, to like help talk about what we're doing from a security perspective and give our customers that confidence. And so I think the partnership is a key thing. We've got to partner, particularly on the engineering and tech side, to make sure that the things that are happening across the company are secure by default and that all the right guardrails are in place. And I think the last bit for me is continue to hire amazing people. We have a great team. We're building the team and getting the right folks with the right passion and right skills on that journey with us. That's probably the most important thing we can do because that scales.
Yeah. Yeah. As we have grown, I've watched our security posture change, like our internal security posture change. When I started, it was literally Shiner saying like, hey, do you have like a laptop you can use to do software development on? And I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, great, good. Here's your GitHub login, like go nuts, right? And now it's like, I can't access this stuff on my personal device anymore. Like the work stuff is on work controlled devices, it's a drastic shift from where we were, but it's also just business as usual now to be like, oh, right, I need to be, if I want to access our source code, I have to be sure I'm on a company device. Great. And that gives you the ability to audit that and track that. And like, if something goes wrong, you have the ability to be like, okay, Roo's company-owned laptop accessed our source code at this time on this date. The traceability is like, it's obvious in hindsight, but, you know, it took purpose to get us here. And it will take purpose to continue to get us to the next level of internal best practices and things like that.
100%. And, you know, most companies go through that journey, right? Like I talk to folks at different companies all the time and everybody's on some stage of that journey. I think it also depends on the company risk profile and what they're doing and what they're trying to protect. And for us, it's a lot. And so we know we have to keep leveling up and keep getting better and keep up with the threat landscape and make sure that we're protecting against it.
Do you have advice that you give to individuals or companies that are responsible for building strong, robust, diverse security teams that are ready to take on both these new and existing threats?
Yeah, I think folks have to start thinking about security from what are the company goals and what are the needs of the company. And I think, you know, it's often easy to grab the latest blog or grab the latest book on, you know, how to build security teams and, you know, all those kind of things and just snap to a playbook. But that may or may not be successful depending on what the company or the org or the team needs, right? And so I tend to approach it that way. So what are the company goals? You know, is it product sales, speed, trust, maintaining customers? Is it speed to market? Like what is the goal? And then from a security perspective, what are the top risks that could affect those goals, right? They could be security risks. And from a security perspective, that tends to be how I think about it. Like if X, Y, and Z happened, how would that affect company goals? And if the answer is it would affect them drastically, then maybe we should go spend some time there. And then kind of from there, what are the key programs that would help to achieve the goals that the company's needed with also addressing the risk? And so I think it's that balance going forward. And I think every company is going to have a different equation and a different kind of weighted scale to look at that. And then the last bit of it is once you've kind of got those three laid out, you sort of have the direction. Do you have the right people on the team to help you achieve whatever it is you laid out? And that's agreed to by leadership. And I think that's kind of that fourth pillar. The details of that, there's just so many nuances into what is important. And for some companies, they don't need to worry about company laptops because the things they're doing on laptops, they don't need to worry about the security because everything is, you know, on some kind of platform that's got baked in security. Other companies have way more security concerns. I mean, I worked in a place for many years where you couldn't bring anything home and you had to drive to a secure facility and leave your phones in your car and walk in and be cut off basically from the world for 8 to 10 hours a day. And so like, there's just so many different things on the spectrum. I think it has to start with goals and risks and work from there.
So 1Password recently acquired Trellica, as we mentioned before, and we touched a little bit on what it is they do and what they're going to bring. Why don't we go a little bit deeper here and talk about the acquisition and what it means for us and our customers? Like, what does this advance in our agenda, in our plans?
So I think the first thing I'll say is the Trellica product is really great, and I want to talk about that a little bit. But like you said too, like the team is amazing, right? Like I've gotten to spend time with a good chunk of the team now, and I'm just so excited to be working with them. They're just dedicated, smart. They fit right into kind of that broader vision we've been talking about of like how we all care about what we're trying to do in the world and the community. And so it's just super fun. From a product perspective, I think the way I see it is Trellica really accelerates our extended access management goals. And so what I mean by that is like a lot of companies are still struggling with what we've kind of called the access trust gap. But basically what this comes down to is it's the difference between, on the security team in particular, it's the difference between what we think our users are doing with their apps and devices and saying like, okay, like these are the only apps, devices, people that are allowed to log into these things. And, you know, we're going to tackle it this way. It's the difference between that and what actually happens. Because in practice, there is a gap there. And so, sure, you may think these are the only company-approved apps, but in most cases, folks are using other apps. They're storing data, company data in other things. I mean, everybody's got a phone and a personal laptop, and they're thinking about things or working about things when they're traveling and doing things. And is it really all known? Is it really all there? And then are we protecting it in a way where it's kind of auditable and we understand how it happens, and do we have the automation in place? And so, you know, I think a lot of companies think SSO is going to just solve this for them. And so everybody's like, oh, let's go SSO and that'll just fix everything. Well, it fixes some of it, but there's a lot of tiers of applications that we use every day at 1Password, and a lot of companies use every day that don't support SSO, or you have to pay a bunch extra to get on that tier. And for a small company, maybe that just doesn't make sense. And so how do we manage access to all of that? SSO, non-SSO, managed, unmanaged, in a way that enables organizations to responsibly deal with access. So offboarding, onboarding, like what are the devices that are coming from, the access is coming from. And so Trellica really levels up our capabilities here by dealing with almost all of that. So being able to discover apps that are being used in an organization that maybe weren't on that managed list. And then things like automated workflows for onboarding, offboarding, integrations with 300, I think it's 350, 300 plus external apps. And that allows admins to do provisioning and deprovisioning and assign access and all these things that typically just take pretty large teams to deal with at most companies. Or companies say, we don't have time or money for that. Just, we trust you, be good. And which is fine. We should all trust our employees. And I think it's unrealistic to expect every single person to be a security expert and know exactly where they can and can't store all the company data and keep it safe. And so I think with Trellica, I'm excited that we're going to round this out and be able to really help companies in what's traditionally been a very difficult space of access management, discovery, integration, workflows that, in my experience, most companies just kind of cobble together on their own.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. One of the things that I am most excited about is how much it scales. We could roll this out to a 20-person company and they would get value out of it. We could roll it out to a 1,000-person company. They'll get value out of it. We could roll this out to a 500,000-person company and it will work for them. Like, it genuinely, the product grows with the company needs in such a fantastic way and provides value all along. It almost feels too good to be true. It feels really, really good.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The first time I got the full demo from the team, I was like trying not to smile the whole time because I saw so many possibilities for how we can help. Like you said, companies of all sizes, teams of all sizes, in a way that doesn't require each one of those companies to have to scale their team size with it. And I think that's really important. It's because, you know, some small companies have sort of solved this problem, but it's very manual. They're relying on, you know, that one person who's also wearing the IT hat to keep up with a spreadsheet of everybody's access. But really, even the big companies today have to have pretty large teams to solve all this. And I think we're going to be able to scale this in a way where they're not going to have to anymore. They're going to be able to have those people work on things that are maybe more value add to their product lines or other parts of security they haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's go back to some advice. Do you have a go-to, like, core piece of advice that you give to someone who is looking to make cybersecurity a little bit more central in their personal or their professional life?
Sure. Well, I mean, I can't pass up the softball of if you're not using a password manager, please start using a password manager, even if it's not ours. I mean, we obviously love and trust and care about the 1Password password manager, but I think it's just so important because I think it gives a way to scale up credential security that's really difficult to do without password management. And with all the features that we've got built in, and many password managers do with biometric security and ensuring that passkeys translate across devices and all sorts of things, it just makes sense today, and it makes security a lot better. Beyond that, I think I try to encourage folks to think a little bit adversarial. So when you get that text message, this is something I say to my family all the time, both immediate and extended, of like, hey, please don't click on random things that get texted to you, even if it looks right. Like if you get a text message from your bank asking you to transfer something or there's a problem, call the bank with the number you know. Like don't click on things. Don't assume that the things you're being sent are from trustworthy sources. And it's hard, right? We all want to sort of live in a world where we trust everything. But I think the reality is move past that in the cyberspace. And so there's a lot of that of like just helping people understand like, hey, think about it this way, and training folks to like be a little bit skeptical of things they didn't initiate, I think is the key.
Yeah. Nice. Do you have something that you want people to know about cybersecurity professionals like yourself? Is there a misconception you're looking to dispel, or just something you want to be like, hey, we're people too? Like, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably it, to be honest. I think every cybersecurity person I know genuinely wants to do the right thing, to protect the product, the data, the services, the apps, whatever it is they're charged with protecting. They want to do the right thing. And sometimes things go wrong, right? I mean, the common saying in security is it's not if, it's when. A security incident's going to happen. It's going to happen to everybody, every company, everywhere. There's no exceptions. And so I think the thing I would ask folks to consider is give some love and empathy and respect to those teams that are working through those things, and realize it may seem like they're grumpy about some security thing, or it may feel a little bit adversarial, but generally they really want to do the right thing for the company. And not everybody's had that opportunity to think about company goals versus risk and all those things. Or even if they have, they may see risk in a completely different way because they're living and breathing the threat actors and the attack vectors every single day. So the teams out there that I've worked with and know are working really hard to try and do it. So they're just trying to do the best they can. Nice.
That's great. All right, last question. Where can people go to learn more about the work you and your team are doing?
Our team actually blogs a fair bit on the 1Password blog, so check out the 1Password blog. Lots of security blogs come up there. And follow the blog, listen to this podcast, obviously. And I would say if folks haven't read the white paper, I always encourage that too. Like it's a fun, well, I'll say it's a fun read. It's a good read. And I think it's incredible transparency for a company in security that talks about how we protect the password manager.
Yep, agreed. It's meaty too. Like it's a thick tome. So
yeah, it's definitely not a light read, kind of in between errands. It's more of a Saturday morning with a cup of coffee read.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jacob, this was really fun. Thank you for taking the time today, and have a good rest of your day, man.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Right. Let's go to Ask 1Password. This is our advice segment, and one of my favourite segments, where you can ask Roo anything and he'll try his best to give you some agony aunt wisdom and tips. Today's email comes from Daniel from Sweden, who says, "Hello from Sweden. First of all, thanks for a great password manager. I really truly enjoy using 1Password on all of my devices, including the CLI, and using it as a vault for my home network secrets. Also, the fact that you focus on being available almost everywhere means that I can easily get secrets, e.g. for my Ansible and Terraform scripts. Yes, I know that my home lab is overly complicated." You and me both. My question for you, however, is about open source. As an open source aficionado, I always look for the most open source tools available. Has 1Password ever considered going open source? What prohibits it from being open source? In an ideal scenario, I'd love to be able to self-host 1Password. Not saying that I would, but just the fact that I could means a lot. I'd rather pay for keeping my secrets safe and accessible on someone else's computer, but if 1Password went away in some way, I'd still be able to use this fantastic product and possibly be able to contribute fixes myself if they appeared. All the best, Daniel. Oh boy, this is a complex, cascading problem, I feel.
It is. So let's talk about the open sourcing 1Password itself. When we talk about the source code for our client applications, the desktop app, the mobile apps, things like that, internally we've said that there's nothing inherently secret about that code. It's not something that we do publish, but if we were to publish it, it does not create an environment where we're sharing things out that we shouldn't be sharing. We do have some open source software. We have open sourced pieces of some of our software, and you can go and look at 1Password's GitHub account to see what we do have available there. But running an open source project is a huge commitment to do well. And even some of the small projects that we have up right now are things that we have said that we're going to do, but it's really been with the understanding that there's responsibilities involved with publishing something to the world in that way. There's responsibilities to support it well. There's responsibilities to make sure that it is well maintained, that we are frequently responding to contributing merge requests, pull requests, things of that nature. And so I think that when we talk about the potential of open sourcing 1Password as a product, it would be a huge undertaking for us to do that and to do it well. And we wouldn't want to do it unless we could do it well. So while we really value the open source community, we fund a bunch of different projects and we make available what we can because we think we can support it well. At this point, we do not have any plans to open source 1Password. When it comes to being able to self-host 1Password, that's a conversation that we've had internally as well. And honestly, it's a similar conversation. It would be a significant effort for us to be able to support a self-hosted 1Password out in the world. So I like the question, and I totally get where you are coming from, Daniel, and it's not something that we have plans to do at this point.
I do get the attention and the draw of open source. And especially in a security tool where others can look at things. The way we go about that particular thing is professional security audits. I always think there's a bit of a misnomer around open source that means it's been checked. Because it might just be open source and no one's looking at it. It's the fact that someone doesn't mean that something like that would get picked up immediately. But security audits definitely do. They're incredibly rigorous.
Oh, correct. Yes.
Anyway, if you have a question for us to answer on the show, you can send them to podcast@onepassword.com. You're welcome to include a name for a shout out or let us know if you'd like to stay anonymous.
All right. Let's wrap up today with our alternative security questions game and play that jingle.
It's alternative security questions, the game show that answers the questions that no one asked for.
Fantastic. It's really, really incredible.
This one's going to be interesting because there's only two of us.
I know.
How are we going to play this with only two?
Well, we did it last time. Remember when we didn't invite Sarah to the show?
Oh, yeah, that's true. It'll be fine. No one cares about the points anyway.
Correct. They are made up and they do not matter. Traditional security questions are boring and not to mention easy to guess. So here we get to suggest some alternative security questions with less predictable answers. This week, both Matt and I will create fake answers to obscure questions. We will both have to act as host to agree or argue on the winning answer based on comedy or creativity. We must also try to detect if the other's answers were real or not. We play 3 rounds and answer 3 alternative security questions. This week's questions are, what's the most questionable thing you've ever spent money on?
I had to have a long think about this one.
Yeah.
Because, arguably, I probably spent some money on some very questionable things in life. But when I was a child, we went to a fairground type event, and there was a man with a parrot, and you could pay to have that parrot land on your shoulder. I paid this money. I believe it was quite expensive. Let's say £10. This parrot sat on my shoulder and screamed in my face, and the person refused to take it off until the 5 minutes that I had paid for was up.
Oh, no.
It was atrocious. It also said many effing and jeffing words, which I thought was a little bit inappropriate for a carnival, but apparently you can't reason with a parrot. But yeah, it screamed beans a couple of times in my ear as well. This is a formative memory, I think. So yeah, I don't know what was going. I don't know whether he really, wanted some beans, whether that was his main kind of sustenance, or whether I was supposed to kind of be feeding him beans. But I do remember, I paid £10 for 5 minutes for a parrot to basically scream swear words and the word beans in my ear at a kind of carnival thing.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer this question slightly differently, which is maybe not questionable, but certainly regrettable.
Was it the skateboard?
It's not the skateboard. I recently spent $100 to not go to a Dave Matthews concert.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's well spent, to be honest.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. Absolutely not.
So, next question. If your dream job was completely ridiculous, what would it be?
Oh, man. It's got to be professional vacationer, right? Like, it's that. It's like, I'm just going to be professionally on vacation, travel the world.
Yeah, not even reviewing. It would literally just be the vacation itself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the job.
That's the ridiculous part.
Yep.
I would like to name weather events. So, like, someone who picks the name of the incoming. I mean, climate change, this is going to be more and more important.
I agree. Yeah.
But I do think if we go back to when there was, a mild bit of weather rather than completely life-changing weather, I think that this would be more jovial. I would like to start adding taglines to weather as well that the news then has to read out. So it would be like a dramatic weather event, but the flair would be, Thunderstorm Greg, destroyer of Wednesdays. That type of thing.
Oh, some real flair. I got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like to do.
All right. Let's wrap up here with what's the best app idea you've ever had?
Okay, I'm going to ruin the format of the game and tell you that this one is real.
Okay.
Because I genuinely believe in this, and I'm even slightly apprehensive of saying it in a public setting just in case anybody steals my idea. And I guess you'll have to judge whether this is a double bluff or not. But my app is called Good Day, right? And it picks a random 4 days out of the year, and then during that day, it sends you loads and loads of praise and compliments and just really nice stuff, but only for 4 days. And you can't pick what those 4 days are, and you have to have the app installed all the time. That's my plan.
Wow.
Can you imagine Carrot Weather, where it has a personality and it's a bit snarky and a bit witty? That, but only that, and it's nice, but only for 4 days of the year, and just randomly.
I like that. Mine is somewhat similar. As you know, I'm a big fan of birthdays, and so my app it would watch your calendar, and anytime someone's birthday comes up, it automatically sends them happy birthday messages and heaps them with praise. That's hey, I hope you're having a great day. This is what a special day to celebrate you. Happy birthday. That, I think that would be really fun, and just get that out in the world. Create some good vibes.
I like it. I especially like it if it could give me reminders to send other people those messages. To be it's 3:00. You haven't sent Roo a message on his birthday for 2 hours. He's pretty needy on this day of the year. Maybe just send an additional thing.
Yes, I agree. I think you're right. We can increase the scope here a little bit. It would also monitor incoming responses on your birthday and let key individuals know that they haven't reached out yet. Yeah. I think we nailed it.
I think we did.
Yeah. Okay. So, Matt, I love the lore that is your life, and I really want to believe that you had an encounter with a parrot one day when you were young.
So yes, that one was true. I was doing a bit of double bluffing.
Okay, so 10,000 points to you for that, for sure.
I think it's well deserved. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for the dream job thing, we probably both answered truthfully because we were just creating ridiculous dream jobs. Well, I don't know if yours is real. Yours is definitely ridiculous, though.
No, I actually, mine wasn't real. I thought it was a funny answer, but it wasn't real because the hate that you would get as the weather gets worse and you're naming it after people. Storm Eileen, Eileen's going to get some bad vibes at work about it, right?
Yeah.
So, no, I wouldn't want that job.
Okay, well, another 10,000 points to you, Matt. That's wonderful. The best app idea you've ever had? I love yours. I actually do think it was real. I hope that wasn't a double, triple bluff.
It was also real. I have a document of all the compliments that I would send people on that day. I just haven't built the app.
That's great. God, one day when I put fingers to keyboard again.
I like the idea of just like a random day appears and then your phone won't shut up about how great you are. Like there's something about that.
It's gonna inevitably happen on a day when you are not having a good day.
Yes.
That's the problem. You're like, stop. Just stop.
We're in a meeting together now, so we probably have to wrap this up.
All right. Well, love you, bye.
Love you, bye.
This is much less awkward than when we were sharing a microphone. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also leave us a rating or review. It's one of the best ways to support Random But Memorable, and we always love reading your feedback. We're also a community-led podcast, so if you have any questions for us, topics, requests, or even guests you want to hear from, please send us an email at podcast@onepassword.com. We read all your comments and look forward to hearing from you. We hope you join us in the next episode for plenty more random moments in the world of cybersecurity.